Welcome to the workshop. Thank you. So we are today here, hopefully doing everything in English because we have an amount of guests from New Zealand. We are focused on the e-portfolios, which we will understand very broadly in the whole afternoon. So if you only speak about essays, we will not bite you. The objective of this workshop is a workshop. So we want here to have open discussion. So the program has been set up so that this is the program, which is here, has been set up so that the presentations are just 15 minutes. You can allow for some questions in the presentation, but I think these should really be only quick understanding questions. And then, so hopefully at about 3 and shortly before 3, we will have a half-hour discussion based after we have the three presentations. So keep, please, your questions, your substantial questions, your perspective request, or your suggestion, or something like this for the long discussion time. And then the same thing happens in the afternoon. We'll have again 3 presentations, each 15 minutes, and then a somewhat longer discussion. Right. So remember, we want to be collaborating, and the collaboration is really happening across the oceans and across the countries. So make sure you have a microphone not too far from you when you speak or when you are online. There will be some people connected, hopefully here to the Zoom meeting as well, so we can check if there are little chat notes. I see there are some, for example, here already. At the end, we are supposed to deliver what's called a Rahmenbeitrag, so a report on the workshop. We have just 1 month for this, so please, let's collect notes. At the workshop this morning, we had a lot of paperboard and we were drawing all sorts of things. Here we have a paperboard actually. So if someone feels like drawing, we can do that. But this does not work so well across the countries. So it's maybe better if we just take the time to write this on a collective thing. Do we want to set up a Google Docs that is writable for everyone? Is that something that would fit you? Or Carson, do you feel like drawing on a Google Sketch? Or so this morning, Carson was very active into jotting. So is that the Google Sketch? Is that what we want? So I'll set this up during the first presentation. That's fine, and I will link this from the homepage. Right. Let's first start with a little round of presentation. I want to hear from you, and maybe we can start, I don't know, with the furthest person from the middle point of everyone. So, Christina, you have to decide who is furthest from Germany down in New Zealand. So, like, there mustn't be a very big distance, but there must be someone further than the other. And then let's go downwards this way. Who are you? What is your role today? And what are your interests in the topics of the portfolios? Christina,
I think let's go with Finlay. Ivan, if you want to provide your answers in the chat since you can't talk, and then go to Robert and to me. Let's go this way.
Kia ora. I'm Finlay Thompson. I'm one of the directors at Dragonfly Data Science, and I'm a mathematician by background. And I'm really speaking about work that has been done by Ivan, who is here but is unable to speak for fear of waking sleeping family. So if he has anything to say, he's going to drop it into the chat. That's enough for me. Sorry, it's a bit gloomy here.
Oh, it's excused. It's past midnight, so it adds to the mood there.
Kia ora. I'm Robert Lyon. I am the Mahara ePortfolio Tech Lead, so I work with Christina, and my interest today is finding out how we can enhance the Mahara ePortfolio system with AI.
Thank you.
Und guten Morgen, ich bin Christina Höpfner und dem Akzent danach auch noch von Deutschland, lebe aber jetzt schon seit 14 Jahren in Neuseeland, and I'm the Mahara project lead, having worked with the development team since I moved to New Zealand, and working also with the community members on enhancing Mahara and also working across portfolio practice in general. So it's wonderful to be able to participate remotely.
Let's go further through here, I would suggest.
All right, my name is Carsten Wolf, and I'm coming from the University of Bremen. And we are also working with Mahara ePortfolios, and we will talk later on using Mahara and multimodal assessment of learning large language models.
Hello, also from me. I'm Zarek Kollenberg. I'm working here at the University in Fulda at the Department of Applied Computer Science, and I've just started my PhD in theoretical computer science.
Right. And your interest here today?
Just looking if there's something interesting for my PhD.
Well, certainly to explain computer science, ePortfolios are applicable. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, my name is Lea Reinhardt. I'm from the Fachhochschule in Dortmund, and I just thought it sounded really interesting, and I'm interested in artificial intelligence in general. So
okay. Well, this is definitely about applications for artificial intelligence.
My name is Lina Warmer. I'm also from the Fachhochschule in Dortmund, and I'm also interested in language processing. And I'm studying medical informatics.
Medical?
Informatics.
Oh, okay. With a special focus on data privacy, maybe?
Should be also really relevant.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Wolfgang Müller. I'm from the University of Education in Weingarten. And I'm starting here a slide of the people from the Weingarten and from the ISO project, which we will know a lot about, I think, in a minute, what it's up to. And I'm co-leading this project together with Paul.
Yeah, my name is Andreas Isking. As Wolfgang already said, I'm working at the ISO project at the University of Education in Weingarten. And well, I'll present one workshop paper today, and also interested in other people who work with ePortfolios.
Yes, my name is Pierre Güntner. I have a little bit a special role, I think, because I also written ePortfolios as a student. But today I'm here to present finding linguistic key figures. And well, I will present it later.
Hi, my name is Alexander Gantico, and I'm also involved in the ISO project. And I would say I have an interdisciplinary view on ePortfolios. So points on didactics and implementation of those AI models. And yeah. And my name is Paul Librecht. I'm a professor of computer science at the IU, and I'm also a developer at Cabri for mathematics. I have and then a researcher at the University of Education in Weingarten for the ISOP project. My interest is quite often about technology, but I want the technology to be have some sense into its applications. And I've been teaching a little bit with ePortfolios at the University of Education in Weingarten, and that was very rich in experience. So I was very motivated to start the project ISOP, which is now running into its third years, within its third years, and that we will report on. Okay, so Finlay, the floor is yours. Just for your information, I shared on the homepage now a link called Notes, and I let everyone take advantage of these notes. This is still a document, but please introduce as many pictures as you can. Everyone should be able to edit this. I see an anonymous giraffe that just come, so that works. Thank you. Finlay, you're up to sharing. I will stop the notes here, and we'll look at the notes from our laptop.
And maybe just also for completeness, that Ivan has a voice as well. He put into the chat that he's Ivan Richard or Richard, maybe. I think Finlay told me that you're from France. Data scientist at Dragonfly in Wellington, New Zealand, and he's interested in applying modern NLP techniques to open text while respecting data confidentiality. Kia ora.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Is that?
Now I shall do the share thing. Let's see if this works. How's that? Does that look right to you?
Yeah, we
Perfect.
see your screen perfectly.
Awesome. Technology for the win. Great. Okay. So apologies for being the middle of the night here, and so I'm sort of I need to get a bit of light in this room somehow, but it's a bit late now. Anyway, very nice to meet you all. I'm here to report on some work that we have completed earlier this year. We being Dragonfly Data Science is a small data science company based here in Wellington, New Zealand, and we do a wide range of things, including natural language processing work. Ivan and I have worked on projects now for a number of years. We didn't start with e-portfolios. We started with characterizing and helping to process submissions to our parliamentary select committees. So they are kind of, when our government here wants to ask for the opinions of the population, they invite everybody to make submissions to a select committee, and those data work in the form of free text documents. And so naturally enough, eventually somebody thought, hey, well, can we process them using some NLP techniques? Coming out of all that work, earlier this year, we had this project related to e-portfolios, and I have to say that was really my first introduction to the whole domain of e-portfolios. And through that, I met Christina, who is and Mahara, that are portfolios. So I'll just give you a little bit of a background around this project, and then what the methods were that were applied, and ultimately some results. I also want to emphasize that this is really mostly Ivan. I want to say, I'm sorry, I say Ivan, he always tells me that's not how you pronounce his name. Apologies, Ivan. So, Te Pauri Whakaora Nana Hau o Aotearoa, the Occupational Therapy Board of New Zealand, is a small organization established under a government act of Parliament to manage the registrations of clinical occupational therapists in Aotearoa. So occupational therapists represent one of a number of allied health workers, like nurses, like radiologists, radiographers, and physiotherapists, optometrists, etc. And it turns out they all, or most of them, have what they call a professional development cycle. So in order to maintain your registration, you are required to essentially to complete a development cycle every 2 years, a professional development cycle. And that means stating what your objectives are, and providing free text descriptions of any work that you do on your professional development, and ultimately what you learned, and etc. And they are all, the board requires those to be submitted through an e-portfolio. And this application of e-portfolios is actually, seems to be quite a big one. Most of you, I understand, are coming from a pedagogical point of view, but this one is similar. They were particularly interested in us being able to assist with the review of the portfolios, and also to provide evidence of sector-wide changes across all of the portfolios at once. So up until our work, the board would review the portfolios of the occupational therapists using a sampling approach. I think they have 10 reviewers who are all senior OTs, and then they would select randomly and ask them to review them. And that approach, while that's, I think, should be continued, it does suffer from the fact that any individual who's reviewing only gets to read a few of them. And so it's hard to see if there are common patterns and common structures, common discussion points sitting across the whole lot. Yeah, so let me just put the chat there so I can see that as well. No, it was, there we go. Sorry. So the one key point about this work is what we call the algorithm charter for Aotearoa, which was introduced in 2020 and provides a guidance that is intended for use by all public agencies. What that effectively means is that there's a short document, which is the algorithm charter, and they went around all of the chief executives of government agencies and made them sign, saying you must do this. And what that in practice means is that it usually gets ignored to a fairly great degree. In our case, I wanted to make sure that it was used. So we commissioned a review of the terms of reference for our project and actually the original proposal. And it was, these are the key findings that came out of this, and which are not too surprising. First one is that senior leadership, including the board of directors, understand the implications of our work. And that means that if we are using machine learning and AI tools to read the portfolios in order to allow occupational therapists to maintain their registration and consequently their employment, that decision to use the AI sits with the senior leadership, in fact, with the board of directors. It's not the decision of the technologist, us. It sits with the board. And that means they have to understand what they are, in fact, authorizing. The second point here is that ultimately they were not comfortable with us sharing data with the public LLM products, such as ChatGPT. And moreover, it would be preferable if the data was held within New Zealand, which luckily we can do because there is a cloud service provider in New Zealand, Catalyst Cloud. And finally, that the intention of the project and the results of the project should actually be shared with the affected stakeholders, in particular the occupational therapists. And so that just means that we have to make sure that the project is all run in a way that is open to those occupational therapists. And interestingly, when we ran the project, we had an early meeting with a selection of OTs from around New Zealand, and they were some of them were definitely a little surprised. Some of them were a little bit frosty initially, but ultimately, I think they were very pleased that we were discussing this fact with them. Okay, so let me see if I can get the next slide. There we go. So the approach to the analysis was to, first of all, we took all of the data and passed it into fragments. So consolidating entities and common expressions. So that's kind of standard text text cleansing.
Can I interrupt?
Please do,
Which data are we speaking of here? Is
Which
this
data?
yeah, is this like all portfolios that were before, or like is one round or something?
So here's the, sorry, I did.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can you see? Slides are probably in the wrong order. I should tell you about this. So the data came from 4 review cycles from 2016, 18, 20, and 22.
Okay.
So those are the years that they finished. So in each case, our year starts in July and ends in June. So 16 actually means from sort of halfway through, from July 2014 through till the end of June 2016, and so on, and in these cycles. And you can see that the number of OTs has been slowly increasing, but not especially fast, actually. Probably this increase is slower than the increase in New Zealand's population, for example, over that period. The data was pulled from 2 different Canadian systems, one called InOneTouch and one called Skillsure. Both of these were proprietary systems that that involved us asking for the information, and they sent it to us in a bunch of CSV formats that were dumped from those databases. They were, I have to say, not especially, they were not especially friendly, but they did give us the data in the end. Let me see.
Thank you.
Sorry, my screen is going really slowly. There we go. So yeah, so those data were collected and parsed into fragments, and they have, I think the portfolios have quite a lot of structure actually in terms of those systems. They divided into competencies, 5 competencies, and 4 different stages, I think is so each person has a number of small pieces of text, sometimes ranging from just a few words up to multiple paragraphs. All of those text fragments were then embedded into a 200-dimensional vector space, I think, using fast text. I don't know if everybody knows what fast text is, but it's a thing. And then clustered using KNN, and after dimensional reduction using PacMap. And I have to say, and I think hopefully Ivan can remind me if I'm saying anything wrong, that this was all done using after testing a few different ideas. So clustering, labeling using TF-IDF, and finally this whole analysis repeated for each of the competencies separately to do the clusters. Ultimately, we built an online app which allows for the data to be interactively explored and ultimately searched. So, and one more slide. Come on, slides. There we go. The biggest key point here is that all of the data is processed at once, and so there's no random sampling involved. Unusual responses are clearly found. They're much more useful for searching. The keyword searches are typically quite blunt, but it does a much better job of semantically finding things that are related, and it allows us to report on some of the trends around some themes through the distribution of the metadata within that. So the metadata being the year and the competency and maybe the location or the other aspects of the individuals involved. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to jump through some actual slides now of some pictures. Let's have a look at some pictures. So this slide is a map So you can see what we've done here is laid out the map on a two-dimensional surface, and there are two large chunks of it. On the top right-hand side, that refers to sections when they are discussing their intentions of what they are planning to do. And in the bottom left, it reflects snippets of code about snippets of text where where they're describing the results of that. So immediately the semantics of the whole problem are split into two parts. And then the colors represent the different clusters that were found using the model. And these little bits of text on here are the labels that were defined for those. You can also cluster, you can color in this map in different ways, and you can also zoom in on it. This is zooming in on it, and you can see that the colors are sometimes a little mixed up, and when you mouse over any particular dot, you can find what the actual text was. This one says, to complete my PPH and learn the karakia, which is appropriate for the service, including correct pronunciation and with full understanding of the meaning. So those words, PPH and karakia, words in Te Reo Māori, and this whole corpus is a mixture of English and Te Reo Māori language in New Zealand, which is becoming more and more common, actually, in New Zealand. And this one doesn't seem to have a picture anymore. Well, here we go. So this is the 5 different response types. So self-assessment, goal description, development activities, goal outcomes, and goal reflections. So that goal description and development activity are the two ones on the top right-hand side. Those are the things where you're describing what you're intending to do. And the self-assessment, goal outcome, and goal reflection are all where you are reporting on what you have in fact learned, if you like, what you found. And so this Explorer is an application which is allows you to search through the data and find individual members and their data. And so this is consequently behind a firewall. It's not open to the public. Access is controlled. And it is all held on servers based in Wellington at the Catalyst Cloud. And we've had very good feedback. So this was prototyped earlier this year, and it's been used now since, I think, about May. And the team at the board have been using this a great deal because they find it very useful for their work, which was the first intention really of the project, was to make it easier for them. And you can also get some kind of summaries of the information. So the topics here on the left, these are just a few words to kind of indicate what the cluster is. And this one down the bottom here, Reo Feel Health. So this is about language primarily. Reo means language in Māori. And competency 2 is competency around cultural awareness. So as you can see, it's finding quite clearly signal where you expect it to be. But there are also other aspects coming through in the data. This is just an example. We've produced a lot of summary documentation for them. This one is just really about using the tool to find Māori. And so you can see that the percentage of Māori words used were primarily in that context, in the context of the Māori, of the cultural competency. And similarly, there's a trend here with increasing use of Māori per cycle, which is also useful intelligence for them and reflects ambitions of the board over over the last few years, they have been aiming to achieve this, and they have, in fact, evidence now that that has occurred. Recently, we've been looking at using Llama 3 to do better job of producing labels and summarizing clusters of statements, and providing sentiment analysis, which is what everybody wants, and is hard to do with fast text vector embeddings. One of the challenges of using Llama 3 has been the kind of engineering around it, which we have mostly tamed, but it's ultimately results in a much more expensive piece of work. And so understanding how to use it in a cost-effective way is actually quite critical for this. And I think that is the end of my talk. There we go. Sorry to be a bit over time, but there you go. Thank you.
This is normal clapping, no? Just in case, because I know some countries is booing during this week. Do we have straight up to the point questions? So understanding questions?
A quick question from my side. Thank you for this interesting talk. Could you explain a little bit more how your tool is being applied? So what is it exactly people are seeking for when using your tool? So what are use cases there?
2 minutes answer, otherwise we'll switch to the comment section.
Sure, yeah. No, it's primarily the reviewing of those portfolios. So they are used by the team that is assessing the OT's professional development to understand that they are in fact achieving what they need to achieve with respect to maintaining their registration as occupational therapists. So it's very much used for an assessment and qualification task. I hope that answers the question.
If there is no other question, I would suggest that we move to the next topic.